Welcome to the Science of Learning. My name is Jeff Hurt, and I'm going to be your moderator during this video. I want to thank you for participating in this. I want to also thank you for your mental engagement for this short video about the science of learning. I'll make an agreement with you. Hope you'll make the same agreement with me. If you've seen me present before, you know what's coming next. We believe in the law of the click. If this video doesn't meet your needs, you get a text, you get a phone call, you have the right, you have permission and invitation to click on out of here. Put those mobile devices around you on vibrate, please. This is a session. You can text, type, social share anything from this video that you like. Let's make understanding our goal in this presenter-attendee agreement. And I'm going to declare this is a safe space to agree, disagree, ponder, and question. As you're sitting and watching this, you have every right to push back on it. Here's a little bit about me. I'm an avid reader, lifelong learner, embrace curiosity. I'm an education evangelist. My background is actually education. My post-baccalaureate work is in the study of andragogy, the study of how the human adult brain learns. Here's where some of this information is coming from in this video. I'm going to give you 6 books here. The Art and Science of Training, Facilitating Learning with the Adult Brain and Mind, and A Mind for Numbers. These are 3 current books. Here's 3 more books. Make It Stick is the one I would really draw your attention to, The Science of Successful Learning. Here's 3 more. Make Your Brain Smarter, Invisible Learning are 2 books I would also draw your attention to. Here's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to identify the steps required in learning as defined by cognitive science, the biology and neuroscience of learning. And we're going to explore what success as a presenter actually means. What success as a presenter actually means. Those are my learner outcomes by the end of this presentation. I hope you're able to do one of those. Take a look at these 2. Which one of these 2 interests you the most and why? I'm going to give you a couple seconds here just to read those silently to yourself. And which one of these 2 interests you the most and why? Okay, we're going to move on. So why would this be important to you? What's in this video, in this presentation that would be important to you? What's in it for you? Well, the empirical research on how we learn and remember shows that much of what we know as truth about learning is wasted effort. We have deluded ourselves and our organizations with illusions of knowing. We think just attending a presentation, sitting through a lecture, leads to knowing and remembering. We've got to adopt and promote accurate learning strategies. We've got to find objective ways to track progress. We've got to bridge the gap between the learning research and the practice of learning. We've got to bridge this gap between what is and what isn't. So those of you viewing this video are involved in the STEM fields. Your jobs require you to follow sound science and research. It's about applying the evidence, the data, and the proof to your work. When we seek medical help today, the diagnosis and prognosis is based on evidence-based medicine, EBM. The science, the same thing with dentistry. It's evidence-based dentistry, and it's the same thing for social sciences. Well, we have 30 years of evidence, research in the cognitive science and neuroscience fields of what works in the learning process and what doesn't work. We now have evidence-based education, EBE. We know what's working and why it works. And what's interesting is that the practices and the methods that we use for most of our presentations go exactly against what the science, what the research says. And even more so for the STEM fields. For those of you that are involved in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medical, it's even more so that you need to use these new practices, the research on what works when it comes to learning. We have evidence-based education. You use the evidence in your job on a daily basis, and so I would submit to you that it's time we start using EBE. So let's start with cognitive science. Cognitive science is an interdisciplinary science, the studying of our minds, learning, and mental processes. This science has been around for quite a while, and it's critical that we understand this science. Cognitive science helps us understand how we connect and hold together knowledge in our own mental models. It is about how we process information, make sense of it, and remember it so that we can apply it. This field of science tells us that we have a mental load limit and that we can only handle 2 to 4 chunks of information at a time. The cognitive sciences. Now that's an interesting point that we have a mental load limit. We call it cognitive load. And after a certain point, the more information that we pour at people, the more information that we share with people, the more information we give people, we reach a cognitive load, and it just starts dropping everything. So the mental load limit, again, is 2 to 4 chunks at a time. And means that if we don't think about that information, if we don't process that information, if we don't reflect on those chunks of information, we drop it, we forget it. We have to think about it, not just hear it. We have to make sense of it, and we have to consider how we might use it. So those are some critical things to think about as you're preparing your presentation. Now, neuroscience is a branch of the life sciences that deals with the anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, or molecular biology of nerves and nervous tissues. And it's related to behavior and learning. It's all about how we learn and our behaviors. And it is actually done through brain scanning and neuroimaging devices. So it looks at our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors and how we learn through neuroimaging and brain scanning devices. So let me ask you a different question. Let's shift. Now that you know a little bit about cognitive science and neuroscience and where this information is coming from in some of the research and education fields, why are you presenting? Why have you chosen to be a panelist? Why have you volunteered to be a speaker? Why are you presenting? What's your goal? What do you hope to achieve with your presentation? I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about this. Why are you presenting? Maybe write it down. What do you hope is your end goal? I've gone quiet to let you think about this. Why are you presenting? What's your end goal with your presentation? Why do you want to speak to an audience? Oftentimes we want to help others. Many of us present because we want to help others. We want to share our experiences, what we've learned, and we want to advance the profession. I would submit to you that because you want to help others and share others, that it's really about you giving of yourself, and that you're passionate about this. You want to do the right thing. It's not just about giving information, but you want to help people progress, advance, and not make the mistakes that you've made. Presenting or speaking is the highest form of understanding. I'm paraphrasing Aristotle. He actually said teaching is the highest form of understanding. And many of you that are speaking see it as a way of teaching. Presenting or speaking is the highest form of understanding. The one who teaches or speaks usually has the deepest understanding of that topic. Now, this is critical for you to understand. The one who teaches or speaks usually has the deepest understanding of that topic. Those of us who present spend the majority of our time developing this presentation, and we dig into it so that we can fully understand it, so we can help other people understand it. Actually, understanding is the highest form of teaching. Education Researcher Ellen Biech says. Actually, understanding is the highest form of teaching. Education Researcher Ellen Biech says. Understanding is the highest form of teaching. Now that's interesting. Think about that for a minute. Understanding is the highest form of teaching. To truly facilitate learning for others, presenters must understand those learners first, says Biech. To truly facilitate learning, if your goal is learning, and I think it might be, and what I mean by learning is that your audience walks away with attitude, behaviors, and skill changes, actually thinks about it differently, then we must start with our learners first. Trying to impart knowledge without thoroughly understanding the learner and how the brain actually learns is like venturing into enemy territory without first investigating where you're going and knowing your enemy's tactics. Now think about that. Trying to actually present to an audience without understanding your learners first is like venturing into enemy territory without first investigating where you're going and knowing your enemy's tactics. Successful presentations don't happen because you as a presenter understand the content. This is a critical point. Successful presentations don't happen because you as a presenter understand the content or deliver a great 30 or 60-minute speech. Successful presentations result in learners changing their attitudes, behaviors, and skills. It results in them being challenged with their current mental model and thinking differently. And I want to say this. This challenging of a current mental model means there's going to be some discomfort. And when people complain to you or to others about a presenter, they didn't like them, or they didn't like the way they said it, what they're actually saying is they're uncomfortable with that cognitive dissonance, that it challenged their beliefs at a core, and they didn't like that. They haven't learned to look at that cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortableness that they're feeling, as opportunity. Opportunity to stay the same, or opportunity to move in a different direction. This comes from understanding learning at its basic biological level. And this is the critical point from neuroscience and cognitive science. Learning is a biological, chemical, cognitive process that happens in the brain. It requires receiving information, connecting it to past experiences and knowledge, making sense of that information, and considering how to apply it. Those are the 4 steps and the learning process that need to happen for learning to occur. What most of us do as presenters is we give out information, we dispense information. That doesn't necessarily mean the audience has received it, which is just the first step. They have to get the information coming in from their 5 senses. Then they have to connect it to past experiences and knowledges. They have to see how it fits within their mental models. They have to connect it. And when it doesn't line up with their experience or their past knowledge, they get uncomfortable with it. Cognitive dissonance. Then they have to make sense of it. They either enter into, okay, let's figure this out. Does this make sense? What would I do with this? And start applying it, or they repel it. And you as a presenter have everything to do in helping them move into this, accepting it, and thinking about how they apply it. This results in change of attitudes, behaviors, and skills. This 4-step process, which Dr. John Medina, Dr. Ruth Colvin Clark, Dr. Daniel Willingham would say to you, is what's required for true, authentic learning to occur. And that it results in the change of attitudes, behaviors, and skills. Gaining knowledge is not enough. Just getting information is not enough. It does not mean that the recipient understands the information or even how to apply it. Lecturing to an audience by itself does not produce learning. Here are 3 education researchers that say this. It comes out in the book. Telling doesn't mean training. These education researchers admonish all presenters to remember this. We must be learner-centered and performance-based. In other words, we must be focused on what the learner's needs are, how they're going to receive the information, how they're going to make sense of it, what they're going to do with it, and then what they're going to do with it on the job, performance-based. Why? Why is this critical for you? Learner-centered, performance-based are the keys to transformative learning. Your success as a presenter means you not only need to know about the what, the content, you must also think about how you're going to cover that content to make sure you do not prevent the learner from uncovering it themselves. You have to make sure that how you're going to cover the content does not prevent the learner from uncovering it themselves. This only happens by virtue of the learner's own activity. You cannot do the work of learning for your participant. Think of it like this. Your audience should acquire the knowledge and skills rather than just receive them through a lecture or panel. When we say acquire, we mean think about, connect, reflect, make sense of that knowledge. That means you have to stop talking some. Even in this short video, I've given you a couple places to think. Successful presenters do not just deliver information or knowledge. They facilitate experiences so that the audience learns that information. Learning is not the automatic consequence of pouring information into another person's head through the spoken word. The learner must have mental involvement and participation. And Dr. John Medina would tell you that you cannot give your focused attention to listening and thinking at the same time. And that mental involvement is the thinking piece that's needed for learning to occur. Lecture and demonstrating by themselves will not lead to real, lasting, authentic learning. So that's the end of this presentation, The Science of Learning. Thanks a lot for joining us, and I look forward to talking to you on another video down the road.